Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rechak, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 1 Kings, the 18th chapter. And as we pretty much read in the 17th chapter, dealing with Elijah and the curse that he put right upon the land of there not being any rain, but yet how the Lord still preserved him, from time to time, be it by the ravens, right, that fed him, or the widow woman, which he dwelt with for a period of time. So here we are in 1 Kings chapter 18, and at this point you can imagine a good amount of time has passed, and now Elijah basically returns back to, back to a place where he can be found. So this is 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 1. And it came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord Yahweh came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, shew thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. So 3 years, right? He's dwelling with this widow woman. And there's been pretty much no rain in the land. So you can imagine how bad things started to get. And Elijah went to shew himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now Obadiah feared the Lord Yahweh greatly. For it was so, when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord Yahweh, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. So remember that Ahab had married Jezebel, and Jezebel was a demon, right? Idol worshiping demon. And so it would make sense, right, that at this point, she started to come after the prophets of the Lord. One of the reasons why the Lord told Elijah to flee. And also, imagine realistically, right? One of the prophets of the Lord, Elijah, has caused a drought in the land. So from the perspective of some idol worshiping demon like Jezebel, of course, she would be inclined to want to go after the rest of them. But their primary focus was really looking for Elijah. Anyway, Obadiah, hides the prophets, right? Basically protects them. Verse 5. And Ahab said to Obadiah, Go into the land, onto the fountains of the water, or unto the fountains of water, and unto all brooks, unto all fountains of water, and unto all brooks. Peradventure, we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive, that we lose not all the beasts. So this famine, this drought was so severe. It was so severe that their animals started dying, right? Because there was no grass, nothing for them to eat. So he's saying, look, if you could find, some body of water, right, there would be some pasture, something around there, right, because of the water. And at least, they can have the horses, the transportation, and the few beasts that were left, they can pretty much preserve them. So they divided the land between them to pass through it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Elijah met him, and he knew him, and fell on his face. So he basically recognized Elijah, right? And fell on his face and said, Art thou that my lord Elijah? And he answered him, I am. Go, tell thy lord, behold, Elijah is here. So Elijah tells Obadiah to go and announce to Ahab that he has returned, right? Elijah has returned. And he said, so this is now Obadiah's reply, What have I sinned, that thou wouldest deliver thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me? So, why are you trying to set me up to be put to death? And why is he saying that? As the Lord Yahweh, thy power liveth, there is no nation or kingdom whither my Lord hath not sent to seek thee. And when they said, he is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they found thee not. So of all the different regions, the lands, all of that, right, you can probably imagine even some of the neighboring nations, you know, he probably might have offered them whatever, gold or some sum to say, look, find this guy. Like today, it's like putting out a warrant. And they all came back and said, nah, he's not here. And so he made them swear that they checked everywhere and they couldn't find Elijah. Meanwhile, he was right there up in Zidon the whole time. Which also goes to show you, you know, how when the Lord is with you, nobody can be against you, right? Because they searched everywhere. How is it they couldn't find Elijah? Right? Because the Lord had hit him. So Obadiah is saying here, look, we've checked everywhere. You were pretty much like a missing, you know, a dead man, because nobody could find you. And now, right, verse 11, and now thou sayest, go, tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of the Lord shall carry thee whither I know not. So now I'm going to go tell Ahab, oh, I just found Elijah, and I'm going to come back and you're not even here. I'm cooked, right? So when when I come and tell Ahab, and he cannot find thee, he shall slay me. But thy servant fear the Lord Yahweh from my youth. Was it not told, my Lord, what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord Yahweh? How I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave, and fed them with bread and water? And now thou sayest, go, tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. So he was really concerned for his life here, right? And Elijah said, as the Lord Yahweh of hosts liveth, behold, before whom I stand, I will surely shew myself unto him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. You can probably imagine he went with haste. What? Take me to him. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? So you're the troublemaker. And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord Yahweh, and thou hast followed Baalim. Now therefore, let's look into this word Baalim real quick. Sounds plural. So we have here the word Baal, right, in the Hebrew. But if you look here in the use of the word in the sentence, not the isolated word itself, right? Because typically when you look into the Strong's, the lexicon, what they do is they give you the root word, right? So here this is Baal or Baal, which is here Lord, right? But the actual use of the word here is Baal, Ha Baal Yum, which is plural, right? That Yum at the end makes it plural to be in the sense of, yeah, let's see here, Baalim. I don't know if, okay. And that the plural would be like deities, right? Or gods or lords, which is in this case idols. Okay, but long story short, Elijah says, I didn't do anything. This is because of you guys, of you worshiping these idols. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel onto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So bring them all over here. And let's take a look here. Mount Carmel Bible map. And once again, it's going to be an approximation, but let's see if we can find maybe one that shows it a bit clearer. And if not, then we can't find it. All right, so one of them here, right, puts Mount Carmel up here, which I guess kind of makes sense, and we'll see why as we keep on reading through this chapter. But you can see they place it like pretty much close to the Mediterranean over here. All right. So verse 20. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, so now we don't know exactly how long this was. Maybe it was like a couple days after or so, because, you know, if you look at all Israel, people have to travel from all different places, you know, and it's not always like a 30-minute walk, you know, to get from Dan down to, you know. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together onto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? If Yahweh be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord Yahweh. But Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks. And so he's basically setting up here you know, you could call it a contest, right? But it's to show here who is a true God, right? The true living power here. Because up until this point, it's all just, you know, words, right? Like, it's like, oh, the prophets of Baal would tell them, oh, Baal did this. Oh, it's because of Baal that this, you know. But at this point, it's like, okay, you've been telling us about Baal. Show us. Let's see this Baal and the Most High. Let's see who is that's why the Lord has the title, the living God. Okay. So that's what's happening here. So Elijah says, all right, let them therefore give us 2 bullocks and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves and cut it in pieces. So bring us 2 bullocks, let them pick whichever one they want, cut it in pieces and lay it on wood and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock and lay it on wood and put no fire under. And call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of Yahweh. And the Lord, and the God that answereth by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. So at this point, you know, it's pretty, you can decide for yourself. It's definitive, right? The God that answers by fire, he's the real one. And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, so prepare it. For ye are many, and call on the name of your gods, but put no fire under. So I'll let you go first. You set up your altar, you set up your bullock, you put it on there, don't put any fire under it, and go ahead and call on Baal, and let's see if he'll light it up. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning even until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. So you can imagine what this sight looks like, right? Jumping around, hopping onto the altar, you know, screaming, doing all this theatrics. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth. Maybe he's knocked out, and you gotta scream a little louder so he can wake up. You know, he's a god. He got lots of things to do, right? And they cried out, and they cried aloud, and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancets, till the blood gushed out upon them. Verse 28, and they cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancets, till the blood gushed out upon them. So they were, you know, doing everything they could. They jumping on the altar, they're cutting themselves, bleeding, screaming, doing these rituals, saying these right? You know, tossing out some weird words and, you know, all manner of different weirdness, and nothing. Verse 29, and it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering. In this case, let's actually look at what it says here for prophesied, but, you know, not in the sense of, here it says to prophesy of false prophets, right? Under influence of divine spirit. So you have, when you're in the spirit, right, of the Lord, and you're actually speaking in the spirit of the Lord, right, as it says, of divine influence. But then you also have false prophets, which feign themselves to be under the spirit of divine influence, and then they say all these things and act like yada yada. So that's what these guys were doing when it says they prophesied. It's not that they stopped and threw on, you know, grabbed the scrolls and started prophesying about what would happen in the future. Not what it means here. So it says they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, and there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. So it was just crickets. And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord Yahweh that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob. Now, before we go ahead, I do want to look up the word Carmel. And let's see what we can find on Carmel. All right. So yeah, I'm sure there had to be some altar of the Lord that was set up there at some point, which is what Elijah was building up here. As it says, it was already broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. Right? So Jacob's name got changed to Israel. Hence the children of Israel. And the stones he built, and with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord Yahweh. And he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. So it was a deep, deep trench. You can imagine when it says that, it's like, you know, when you look at like furrows, for seeds, right? So a furrow, okay, these are all pretty good, but furrows are basically like holes, like lanes that are dug in the ground. When you have a plow, right, somebody using a plow, they're breaking up the earth. They're basically digging lanes inside of the earth where they would then plant the seeds and then cover it up and water it, right? So you can see how it grows in between here. These are furrows. So, and it's similar to a trench. You're digging like this lane or this you know, path, whether it's circular or straight or rectangular, in the earth. So that's why it mentions here about 2 measures of seed, meaning that's how, like, if this was a furrow that was digged, it would be a deep one that would be enough to contain, you know, a lot of seed when you're, you know, and then you cover it up and so on. But in this case, it wasn't, this wasn't dug, this trench wasn't dug for planting of seeds. And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces and laid him on the wood, the bullock that is, and said, Fill 4 barrels with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. So we all know that when you wet something, right, usually it's harder for it to catch on fire. When somebody's on fire, what do they jump in? They jump in water, right? If there's a body of water right there and somebody catches on fire, they're going to jump in there. If you're on a ship and you catch on fire, you're probably going to jump in the water, right? What do firefighters come and fight fire with? Water, right? So pouring the water upon the wood, wet wood, is probably one of the most impossible things to catch on fire. So pouring the water upon the wood and the offering and all of that, makes it even harder for it to light up. So this is sort of raising the stakes to also increase the glory of the Lord when he actually does light it up. And he said, do it the second time, and they did it the second time. And he said, do it the third time, and they did it the third time. And the water ran round about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. So he poured the altar is wet, the sacrifice is wet, the wood is wet, and even the trench that was dug about is now filled with water. How is this thing going to light up? But it shows how much confidence Elijah had in the power of the Lord, how much faith he had. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near. Because remember, there was the morning oblation and the evening oblation, right? That's even in the law. So at the time of the evening sacrifice, which would make sense as well, Elijah came near and said, Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, which is Jacob, let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, Yahweh, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord power, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. So show your power so they can see, that you're not just out in the ether somewhere. Then the fire of the Lord Yahweh fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. So it took everything out. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, Yahweh, he is the God. Yahweh, he is the God. And Elijah said unto them, take of the prophets of Baal, let none of them escape. And they took them, they grabbed them up. And Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slew them there. Now, if we go back to our, I guess it wasn't this one, the diagram we looked at before, you can see they placed Kishon somewhere around here, which is brook, is a body of water. All right. So they took the prophets over there and they slew them, right? They actually put them to death, whether it's beheading or stoning, whatever it means. And Elijah said unto Ahab, so that's a pretty explicit sight right there, right? Today they'd say, yo, throw him on trial. But, back then, hey, this was a righteous thing that Elijah did, because he was putting away idolatry in the land. And Elijah said unto Ahab, get thee up, eat and drink, for there is a sound of abundance of rain. So, go ahead, go eat and get your strength back, because, basically the famine is over. I hear some rain coming. So Ahab went up and to eat and to drink. And Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he cast himself down upon the earth and put his face between his knees. So he basically made obeisance, right? He bowed down and put his head down. And he was probably maybe praying at this point. So when he was done, right, and said to his servant, go up now, look toward the sea. And he went up and looked and said, there is nothing. So you see why this makes sense, where they kind of place Carmel over here, because the sea is literally right there, the Mediterranean, right? And so he probably told his servant, go to the top, go to higher ground, because then you can see further ahead and see, get a visual of the sea, right? Like even when you're when you're driving by like a coastal region or even the beach, you'll see the water, right? Even from afar, as you start to get close, you'll see the line, right? And and the water. Anyway, so it says, then there is nothing. And he said, go again 7 times. So go and check 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time that he said, behold, there ariseth a little cloud out of the sea, like a man's hand. So now he sees this like cloud-like figure that looks like a man's hand coming up out of the Mediterranean. And he said, go up. say unto Ahab, prepare thy chariot and get thee down, that the rain stoppeth thee not. So he's basically go find Ahab, tell him to get up out of here, because the rain is coming, and you're not trying to get caught in that. So you can imagine that at this point, right? As we're reading here in verse 45, and it came to pass in the meanwhile that the heaven was black with clouds and wind, like when the storm clouds gather, and there was a great rain, and Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. So let's see if they show where that is. Jezreel here. Interesting, they show all these places and not Jezreel. All right, see if maybe we can find it in another area. Jezreel map. Take a look at these images. Where do they place? Okay, so here's a Jezreel Valley. So maybe it's somewhere around here, not too far from Carmel. But the point here is, when you are outside and, you're, I don't know, maybe you're almost home or you're somewhere and you're outside and you start to feel those light drizzles and you look up and you see the clouds gathering, you're trying to make it home quick, right? Or make it into the building or make it wherever you're trying to go, because the rain is coming. So if you were taking a nice stroll, you're probably speeding that up. You're probably maybe jogging or running, trying to get up to wherever you got to go quick, right? Well, what do you think Ahab was trying to do here? He was trying to beat the rain so he wouldn't get caught in it. So you can imagine that he's commanding his chariot men to make sure the chariot is moving very fast. Make sure those horses are running very fast so you don't get caught in the rain. And I'm emphasizing that leading into the next verse to show the power of the Lord here, right? So Elijah tells his servant, go tell Ahab, hurry up and get out of here because the rain is coming. Ahab gets in his chariot, he books it, and then verse 46, and the hand of the Lord Yahweh was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. So the Lord put the spirit on him, whether it was like super speed or something, where he basically ran and outran Ahab's chariot, which, as I described, was probably going at a very fast pace as it is, so he wouldn't get caught in the rain. So Elijah on foot ends up outrunning Ahab's chariot and meeting him at the entrance of Jezreel. Now, when you look this up, I like the way they worded in the thing is in the NLT, right? It says, then the Lord gave special strength to Elijah. He tucked his cloak into his belt and ran ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to the entrance of Jezreel. So yeah, that's even an example right there of like you have spiritual power in the sense of healing others, or maybe having like Yahushua did, right, to where you have multiplying food and stuff. But here's an example of like a physical aspect of it, where the Lord strengthened Elijah to, you can probably imagine, where he didn't get tired. He was running extra fast because that's the only way to outrun that chariot, right, on foot. And then ended up beating Ahab to that entrance of Jezreel. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the book of First Kings, the 18th chapter. Lord willing, you were edified. And with that, we're going to end it here. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kudash. And until next time, Shalom.